What's up, guys? This is the CJ Murray Podcast, an exploration of music philosophy from a Christian perspective. These are stories and insights to encourage and challenge our views of music, God, and who we are. Thanks for listening, and now, today's conversation. Okay. Well, Christina, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So no pressure.
Yeah.
It's a very intense podcast.
Yeah. Everybody's watching.
So everybody's watching. All the cool kids. This is where the cool kids hang out.
Right.
But you just started a podcast.
Yeah.
Right.
I
So give me like the crash course. Why the branding? We were talking about branding out there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's the rundown of your podcast?
So my podcast is called Created Creators. It kind of delves deep into the cross section between faith and creativity. So we're going to be talking a lot of worldview, a lot of philosophy, and then it's also just going to be kind of a chill podcast too. It's something that I feel really like led to do. So not something I necessarily was like, I'm going to do this because, this is exactly who I am. And, like it's something that I went back and forth in my head with for a really long time. And like over the course of a year, and then, we kind of go into, we did film the first episode. So we kind of go deep into that in the first episode. So if you are watching this podcast, then you should definitely go listen to mine. It's Created Creators, and there's an Instagram. Yeah, I don't know. We have a lot going on. So
is it like you just talking to the camera? Is it you and a friend? Is it like, what specifically is the format going to take place?
It's basically just going to be, there's not going to be like any video up front because I'm currently in grad school, and I also have a co-host. Her name's Juliana, and she's great. So it's going to be just kind of casual, just us talking about art and what we're going through, and we're going to have guests on the podcast eventually. So yeah, it's a whole endeavor, but I'm kind of just taking it one step at a time because I don't want it to like be tons of pressure.
Sure.
Just because
yeah.
there's like so many other things going on right now.
Sure.
Like,
yeah.
Probably shouldn't be starting it in the season, but I don't know. I just feel like there's just too many things that had happened leading up to it that I'm like, it kind of does have to be now at the same time. So.
For sure. No, there's two podcasts that you should look up. Neither which are video.
Mm-hmm.
One of them, Haley Shoemaker, has a podcast.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And Haley Shoemaker being married to one of Dr. Shoemaker's sons. I forget kind of the relations of it all.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, she has a podcast, and she has like a lot of people that I think we would know. And it's, as she would refer to it as, no, I'm thinking another podcast, but it's like a testimonial podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I've listened to a little bit of that. And then there's another one. Oh my word, I can see the branding clear as day. Something to do with love.
I don't know.
Oh my word, I'm so close. But anyways, but she's posted every week for years.
Wow.
Yeah. And so like she'll talk with guests that are women, her husband will talk with guests that are men. And as she referred to it, it was a testimonial podcast where she just finds Christians all around Pensacola. It doesn't matter which industry.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, hey, tell me your story. And that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like declaring his loving kindness, something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
But yeah, like a very testimonial podcast. Well, you mentioned like feeling led to do it. Walk me through your burden. Like, what is it about the creative sphere or the creative world that you think your podcast, like, you really feel led to speak into?
So I feel like, where do I start? There's so many avenues that I could go down because I will get led down to different.
You can go down more than one.
Okay.
I'm here for it.
So I grew up in a Christian home. I got saved from a young age. Pretty common story amongst many Christians. And I've always had this desire to share the gospel, like for as long as I can think of. I also had this desire for art. Can't explain the desire. I just remember like always being obsessed with it, and I understood that art was a form of communication, and I don't know, there's so many things that are connected to it. I'm trying to get my thoughts together.
You're good. You're totally good.
Let's start with a little story. So
Sure.
I just remember being like a little girl and being like, I'm going to be an artist one day. And my dad's like, artists don't make money. And like, you know,
I've
the
been
dad,
there,
the dad facts.
It's okay.
Yeah, the dad facts. And I was like, oh, okay, whatever. I probably won't be an artist. So when I was a teenager, I was like, I'm going to be a nurse. And that was like my thing. I was a volunteer at a hospital for like 2 years. I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And, you know, I could share the love of Christ through this and blah, 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 and all this stuff. It wasn't until I decided finally that I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go for it. So I chose my major, graphic design. Don't really know why. Had no experience in graphic design at all.
My word. I
saw one video on YouTube and I was like, I think I could probably do that. I was really into Bible journaling at the time. So I would just like hand letter all day in my Bible, and I would that's kind of how it all started. And then I also have so many like artists in my family on both sides.
The OG coloring book.
Yeah. So
yeah.
It's fine. That is a controversial thing, and they're like, should you draw in your Bible? I don't know.
So I'm assuming you still land on it's okay to highlight your Bible.
If you only saw my Bible, yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. I write in my Bible. I write notes everywhere. So yeah, that's how I learn. I'm very visual. So like just reading it is just like, you know, like that's great, but like I need to engage with it.
Do you color code specific ideas?
I used to. I've kind of changed over the years. So kind of everywhere right now.
Okay, cool.
A lot of it's just like squiggling and circling and, you know, just whatever God's telling me in the moment.
Sure.
You know, so anyway, so that's kind of how it started. And then I went to school for 4 years, college, and studied graphic design. And growing up in a very conservative Christian home, when I told my dad I wanted to be an artist and this is what I was going to do, he was like, oh, okay, you're going to be one of those. Okay. I was like, you know what I mean? Like he had he had a very certain perspective on like the art world in general. Okay. And it's very much associated with like secularism and things like that. I'm sure you understand.
Sure.
And so I was just, I don't know. I went to college, sorry. And I just remember sitting in my first history of art class and being presented ideas that I had just never been presented to me before, and how like you can glorify God through your art, and like it can be a sense of ministry. And then I was like, oh my goodness, I'm like having all these epiphanies, because I'm like, yeah, because that makes sense, because like art's a form of communication. Yeah. And it's like it just opening up to a world that I had never like been exposed to. Yeah. And maybe I was just deprived from that kind of thing. I don't really know, but I think that everything happens for a reason, and I think that God probably lays certain desires in certain people's hearts for a reason. And so that's been my desire ever since, is to like kind of hone into that, I guess. And I don't know, I'm very passionate. I'm a passionate person. I can literally be passionate about anything. Like all in. I'm all in with everything, which is like a lot for people.
Blessing and a curse. You know, yes. Like it's all fun and games until you have three passions that each want the whole thing.
I can't even tell you.
So there was a friend that sat me down, because I was planning on like doing something with missionary work, and do I want to be a pastor, and I'm getting a business degree, so I could do business, and I want to do music. And a friend sat me down and said, yeah, like you're gonna die.
Yeah.
And so my friend actually is a girl I was talking to at the time. And she said, I don't care what you choose, but choose something. Like just one thing. Just choose one thing. And that was like a fork in the road for me, where I prayed long and hard, and like I landed on music, and I was like, you know what? This desire goes the farthest back. So that's what I'm doing. But like, how did that look for you?
Yeah,
you're all in. That was where we left off.
I don't know. I've always been a dreamer. I don't know. It sounds very cringe. I'm very well aware of that. But like, I was like the little girl that was like watching movies, and I'm like, and then I'm gonna be this person in the movie, and then I could see myself doing this one day. So I always wanted to do acting. I was very heavily involved in music growing up. So everyone around me, that's what they expected me to do. I play like several instruments. I love singing. I love writing music. Like that was probably my first passion.
We've talked about that.
Yeah, we have talked about that. And that's why I was like, oh my goodness. When I met you, I was like, yes, I love this so much. I wanted to be you. There's so many people I've wanted to be. So yeah, I just like, as I get older, I understand that like I can't do everything. And even though I've tried to like, be the best at everything. It's extremely exhausting and not healthy. So
can I comment on that actually? Because I feel like this has been mulling around in the back of my mind. I mean, I relate so much to a lot of that, where I think I would agree. Let's change this really quick. I would agree that as a kid, I really, like you said, it's just verbatim, like I'd watch a movie and I'm like, oh man, if I could act like that, or oh man, it portrayed this type of person. Oh, if I could be that type of person.
Yeah.
Like there's a meme of like some animated character in a theater like vibrating as a child. You're downloading the coolest personality in the movie. You're like, this is totally what I want to be.
Yeah.
Or like whenever I saw people on stage, it's like, yes, oh my word, like that's the thing.
That was
yeah.
Yep.
And but I feel like I've come to a place where when you do land on that one thing, that usually, when God's kind of toyed with all these ideas, when you really focus on that one thing, like there's got to be a way to become an asset to all those other things you wanted to do, where like other people are still like, that's their thing, but somehow your thing is a huge asset to help them in whatever they're doing. And so like you kind of get the gratification of like, if I do music for a play, like, I'm not going to do I'm not going to put in the acting time, but if I do the music for it, I kind of get to live through that and give my best foot forward to help other people where they excel. Or like if you're doing graphic design and like you're going to design for a movie, or you're going to design for even a hospital, or like what you name it.
Right.
But like usually when God showed you that thing he wants you to really hone in on, there's so many other avenues we don't see off the bat. But like down the road you realize, oh yeah, that is cool. Like I accept that he's granting some of those small desires you've gained along the way.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I've thought.
Yeah. And furthermore, like I believe that every aspect and every like gift that God has given me and every desire that I've had has actually built me to be the person that he wants me to be. And I don't even think I'm there yet, obviously. Because we're always learning, we're always growing.
Not until you die.
Right. Exactly. So we're always learning, we're always growing. We're never gonna like be perfect, so God can use you in so many different ways throughout your life. And I think just being open to whatever he has for you and just being like it, and it's not something like I never would have envisioned myself being in the career path that I've chosen or anything like that. And then like going back to like my desire for music and all the things like that. Like I don't think that that's like a closed door. I think like that could be something in the future, but like it's just too weird. All of the doors of opportunity God has opened that even just like starting my own podcast and learning how to do that, like it's very intimidating. It's honestly like pretty scary.
It's a ton of work.
Yeah. And it's a lot of work. So it's not something that it's like, I feel like a lot of people on YouTube or they start a podcast, the people outside of it and that don't know it and just want to like comment and they don't know the amount of work that goes into it. They're probably just like a little bit critical and they're like, oh, they probably just do this so that they can get attention or that it's like, no.
And like, I've been there too, though.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, just because
no, it's
this
okay.
came to mind, like there's this true crime podcast I listen to called Crime Junkies. and like, it's neat because like these girls will like, they'll take turns where one of them will research this like historic crime or this mass murderer or whatever, and they'll take turns on who does the bulk of the research, and then they explain the whole thing to the other person, and you kind of live through the other person because they're asking questions and whatever. And anyways, one of the last episodes that I listened to, like towards the end of the episode, they were going into this one guy, and he was like, I forget what his career was, but point is he was against abortion, and these girls were freaking out because, oh well, who is he? And like they had a huge rant, like pro-abortion, and they really leaned into this guy, and he wasn't a bad guy, and he wasn't involved in the crime, but like they went off on politics, and for me, I love their podcast, but like I commented, and I said like, great episode as a whole. I really did not appreciate the political rants. Like that's not like I listen for true crime, and it was so irrelevant. And so I've fallen in that category where it's like, hey, like from their vantage point, I'm just an angry listener. When really, I love their podcast.
Yeah.
I just like, there comes a point where, and this goes for like you too, and like even me, it's like also know your lane. Like if you're a philosophy podcast or testimonial podcast or you name it.
Yeah.
Or like if you're a broad type thing, I think that's okay. But if you've like really niched down on this thing,
I feel like going back to like the entire idea of the podcast and like why I started it is like I've always had this desire to like help people too, and honestly, it's very interesting because I feel like throughout my life people have tried to turn that on me and try to tell me like what my intentions are in doing things when they don't believe that people can just genuinely want to be helpful and like be loving. And like it's almost like hard for people to understand the concept that like people can just be good people and want to help people and love them and desire for them to grow spiritually, and valid, because there's so many people that take advantage of that. Like there's so many people in the world that start things and like their intention is to make money from doing it, or they just want the attention or like the clout or something like that. So I completely understand that. But yeah, I just have to make it known that that was like my entire basis for it, is because I love inspiring people. I love encouraging people in the Lord. And it's just a desire that's like never gone away. And I feel like if God gives you that deep of a desire for something, like, you have to be a steward to that, and you have to do your due diligence to, get it out there in the world, because like conversations help people, and that's just the truth of the matter. Like so your podcast is trying to combine a lot of that. So your interest in art and the philosophy of it, and then also just like trying to help people in the creative realms and how they think about it. Is that really what it is? Yeah. So, I think that like once we actually continue to do more episodes and stuff, we'll land more on like exactly what direction it's going to go, because I think my original idea was to kind of inspire maybe secular artists, because the art world is crazy and in a lot of different ways, not just crazy, but just like, it's a lot. There's a lot of different ideas around it. There's a lot of like, don't talk about this like topics around it. Or like, you can't talk about this because this is already established. And I'm just like, that's not very true. So
what, like, can I actually ask like what kinds of things?
Just like the know God, like do what you want, art for art's sake kind of things. Like, are there objective truths in art? Things like that I feel like I'm still studying, and I'm really excited to start continue to talk about this and start the podcast and study more on things like this, because like, obviously, I'm just like a girl talking. Like, I'm not like a philosopher. I'm not like an expert on something. This is just somebody who's interested in it and who's going to try to study it more to try to help people understand. But that was the main goal, is like, well, if I could talk about this and put it on a level for secular artists to understand the Christian worldview on art, then like maybe they would just understand like Christ in general, and it would be a gateway to get them to hear the gospel. And then like, you literally never know what God's gonna do with that. Like it could start an entire movement of people who are passionate like creatives who are so excited to create for God's glory, and then like also at the same time it's communicating like everything that God wants. I don't know, it's just like, you just never know, and like you kind of just have to take a chance on that desire that God gives you. I don't know how to explain it other than that. I don't know.
Well, I mean, you said I'm just a talking girl, but what I will say though is you have a lot of energy too, and I think that I think keeping energy for a podcast is like key to engagement. And I think it also elicits the best out of other people too. So like when you have a lot of energy that's really well directed, I feel like that's half the battle. Yeah. Because I mean, there's a lot of boring podcasts too.
Well, I've like side tangent. Okay. I've always had like very low self-esteem. So like the fact that I'm even getting to this point is kind of a miracle for me. like, I just never thought that I would do anything like this. Because I'm like, nobody wants to listen to me. Nobody's going to like, who cares? Like, you're just a girl with dreams. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, it's just like a whole thing in my head. I don't know how to explain that. But then like getting to a point where you're like, well, it's not really about you to begin with is like, okay, well, if it's not about me and if it's about God, then why am I worried about doing something about it? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like, if it's not about, like, even if there's something that's not about you, it still involves you.
Of course.
And so I feel like when it comes to nerves and hesitancies and, like, there's just a humanity you can never divorce from the whole doing of it. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, take your normal average person and put them on a stage with 100 people staring at them. It doesn't matter what their motives were. They're probably terrified right now.
Oh yeah.
Like it. Yeah,
exactly. So I just had to like get over that in my head. Yeah. So we'll see how it turns out.
Can I give you a statistic that challenged me and I'm going to pass it on to you? So someone told me, I think it was my older brother, that 80% of podcasts don't make it past episode 20. Yep. So
I could see why.
Yeah. So
it's a lot of
like
work.
A lot of people, and it's actually really funny because I made it to episode 20. And that was when I burned out.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, well, I'm the statistic, and here we are, keep going. But
yeah.
But I will say, to your point, and this is to encourage you, is like, God wants me to do this, and at that point, I really think that despite what a person's motives might be, if you're close enough to God to understand God wants me to do this, and your motives aren't entirely straight, God can still work with that. You know, like, I think a lot of people are scared to start because they do have self-esteem issues, or they do have, all these things going wrong or whatever, but like, or like they want it to be so good off the bat. And
I struggled with that.
Yeah.
So I had to get to the point where I was just like, you know what? We just got to start, because like, if you don't start, then it's just never going to happen. Like, and it's not going to be the best. And I don't know. I had a lot of really, interesting situations happen that led me to doing it. So like, just like things that I failed at that I was like, okay, well, I don't know, just things that God has used. I could go into that, I guess, but
sure, yeah.
Yeah, so I started working last summer for a YouTuber. I was starting to edit his videos. Okay?
Oh, cool. I did not know that.
I'm not going to name drop, but it was probably it was a dream opportunity for me, because it was somebody I'd watched since I was like 14. Tech reviewer, like, very cool. And I was like,
is he PCC grad?
Yeah. So you can put it.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Put two and two together.
Yeah.
So he was a huge inspiration to me. I started working for him, and I have this problem of taking on too many things at the same time, and not realizing that I'm really doing it until like things are due, and I'm like, oh, I can't do all of this. Okay. There's also just like a lot of life situations that happened last summer, that just like personal things that happened that got really overwhelmed. So I basically started working for him, and I was like, this is too much right now. I don't know if it's because I put him on a pedestal in my head, like the pressure of like impressing somebody that like I really looked up to, or like what was going on, but I had to tell him that I couldn't work for him, and that was like a huge decision, and I was just like so upset with myself. Like, I was just like, how could you get this opportunity? You landed it, you got the job, and then like and then you just couldn't do it. Like, so that was just like a huge learning point for me, because it wasn't until then that I didn't realize, you kind of have to fail to succeed at things, and that is like way harder than people would realize.
It's really fun to put on a plaque and stare at it when you go to work, but when the rubber meets the road, it's brutal.
Yeah. So that was one thing that kind of like really crushed me and made me think twice about which opportunities I'm taking and what I'm actually going to try to do with my life, because I I do at the end of the day, I'm pretty passionate about everything. So I tend to just like take things and I'm like, I'm going to learn how to do it. I'm going to learn how to do it. Even if I don't know how to do it, I'm going to get it done. And like, that's just kind of how I think. And I feel like with that situation, God was like challenging me in a way that is like, okay, where do you really want your life to go? Like, what are you actually trying to do here? Because like, if I'm just going to be taking like every single opportunity that I can, like, I'm going to be always tired. I'm always going to be burnt out because at the end of the day, you can't learn everything and you can't be the best at everything, which is just like a no duh situation. But like, I feel like when you're a passionate creative, you're always just like trying to be, you have to like kind of stand out, you know, like you're kind of taught that from the beginning, like what's in your portfolio that's going to make you stand out, what sets you apart as a designer, like all these different things. And so like I was always trying to find that, but I'd never had like my thing. And I was kind of like the jack of all trades, whereas like I looked at a lot of my super creative friends and they had their thing. Like I was like, oh, that guy's good at animation, like, oh, that person's good at branding, and like that's their thing. And I was like, what's my thing? Like I want a thing. I want to just be good at one thing and only have to worry about one thing, but I can't because I'm so passionate about everything and it's so frustrating. But it's also good at the same time in some situations. But I've never looked at myself as somebody who's gonna have like their thing. I have a very like a broad like mindset when it comes to things like that. Like I've never pictured myself for working for a company. I've pictured myself owning my own company, as like a leader in some ways. And then, you know, there's things in school that taught me that like, you know, situations that I was put on being leaders on projects and stuff that like, man, being part of being a good leader is being able to delegate things and being able to let other people do things for you. And
it's
then
so
I'm like,
hard when you're passionate because, and like, it's a very fine line between that and being a control freak.
Oh,
and
I definitely have been a control freak.
It's such a fine line because you're so protective. And like when I've shown a handful of friends my music and they're like, oh, well, I think you should. And I become this like mother bear to like the project. Mm-hmm. We're like, I'm listening and I'm nodding and I'm like genuinely considering. But at the same time, there's a piece of me that's like, cool, I love your thoughts, but this is my project. Yeah. Like you can give your thoughts, but you're not the one that's spent 30 hours on this.
Yeah, it's definitely a tricky situation. And like, so basically what started, I don't know if the podcast is going to be a thing, but for some reason I just feel like it could be like my thing. It could be something that starts something else. So I'll just kind of give a brief, I'm going to try to be brief, but
I don't care.
Yeah. And if you listen to the first episode of my podcast, you'll probably hear some repeats. But
well, it's like I said, this is going to come out in like November probably. Right. So I'm like really curious to see where your podcast is at by the time you listen back on this episode. We just go back and it just doesn't exist. Yeah. So I'm sorry, continue. Yeah. So what happened is I was in an ad design class and we had to come up with our own branding for an event. It was a fake event. It was all like, make this up, be creative, like just absolute creative liberty, do whatever you want. And I don't know how I thought of it. I was just like, what event am I going to do? And I was like, well, I love artists. I love art. I love everything. So I was like, I'm just going to do like a creators convention, but I want it to be specifically for Christian creatives. Nice. And at the time there wasn't very many, like, I researched it. I didn't really see any. I think there's a few now, like creator conventions that are like specifically for Christian creatives. But most of the time it's like music and, I think like Answers in Genesis has one, which I'm very intrigued and I hope to go to that because I just would love to like be a part of that. So I was like, okay, mine's going to be Christian Creative Convention, blah, blah, blah. It's not a very good name. It's kind of general. And then also like I also wanted to incorporate the idea that like everybody is welcome. All artists are welcome. You know, like anyone with any viewpoint should be targeted toward this conference. Someone in my class that I didn't always like necessarily get along with, like very interesting, like not super close friends, just like acquaintances, kind of tapped my shoulder in class one day. It's like, what if you named it this? And I was like, that's crazy because that's actually a really good name. And so I was like,
I don't know. I just always think it's interesting how God uses certain things that you would never expect to like, you know, and that's been like so many instances, and just like how this started is like God using things that I would never do. And I think that does play into the fact that I kind of can be a little bit of a control freak sometimes, because I'm just like, this has to go like this and this has to go like this. And yeah, so I'm just amazed by like how God uses things for me, like in the sense that like it's always from people that I don't expect it. But he suggested the name Created Creators, and I was like, that's so genius, because it's literally just acknowledging the fact that like you are God's creation, but you're also creating. Like, I don't know. It's like, I loved it. I think it makes sense, but
it's the act of reflecting God. I think it's such amazing imagery of like, we as humans are compelled to create because it's in God's nature.
Yeah, and we're made in his image. So it's like, yeah, I loved it so much. So I was like, okay, this is what we're going to do. So I did all of the branding for it. I made up this fake event. I made invitations, tickets, like all this thing. It's just like purely based off of the fact that like I'm going to do this project. Okay. And then like I started making this joke where I was like, well, this is going to be a real thing one day, obviously. Like, this is going to be a real convention. And I started like, really, I have notebooks full of like ideas. Okay. So like, I'm like, I'm going to do this one day. And I'm like, it's going to happen. And then like, everyone in my class would like, you know, haha, very funny, like it's never gonna happen, and I was like, yeah, maybe not, but like a girl can dream, I guess.
Come on, guys, dream with me.
Well, so yeah, literally. So then there were like a lot of people. They're like, dude, you should totally do this, and I'm like, I can't do this. I've never done anything like this before, so, and I still haven't. So like,
is the podcast like an outcome of that?
Yes.
It's like the convention in audio form.
Oh yeah. So, I'll get there.
Okay, sure.
In a second. So. Basically, I started making this joke in class, and then the more I said it out loud, the more I was like, this actually could be a thing one day, and like, it's going to be so good. So I was like, yeah. So I started writing down all these ideas, because that's kind of how I make things happen anyways. I just can, write. So there was one person in my ad design class that stood out to me that was like, you are so going to do this, and like God's going to use you. And they're like, you just don't even know. And I was like, okay, so that was Juliana. And I wasn't even like great friends with her. Like, we were friends, we were coworkers at the time, and like acquaintances, but we were not like super, super close. And we just so happened to be like in the yearbook together. Like, we did yearbook together, and then we just so happened to be in the same exact job. And it just felt like God kept putting us in the same places. Yeah. She was like a huge encouragement to me. And so I was coming to the point where like I had just finished being a team lead for a class project anyway, and like learned a lot about like leadership, and learned a lot about how to delegate things, which is one of my weaknesses. And I learned how to just have to trust people with like certain things. So that being said, I was like, well, if I'm going to be a good leader one day, and I really do want to own my own business one day, and like have all of these goals, if this is really where I'm trying to go, then like I need somebody who's going to help me there, because I can't do it all myself. Yeah. As much as I would love to, because anyway. So God just kept like putting Juliana in those places, and she just kept being like this huge encouragement. So then I started making the joke where it was like, okay, well, you're gonna be my assistant or something like that. And she was like, I'm so down, and it just became like this joke. And so then we got placed in the same directed studio class that semester as well. Cool. And I would be working on this branding, and I was talking to one of our teachers about it, and we just started having like these conversations about it, like what if we did this, and what if we did that. And I was like, oh yeah, so cool. And then like at the end of the semester, I started telling my other classmates about it, and then they were like all in. I was like, okay, I was like, this could actually be a thing. And then we went home for the summer, and I didn't think about it since. So I was like,
summers will do that too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All in God's timing. Everything happens for a reason. Absolutely. So that summer happened, and then I learned so much over the summer about like, just failing and not being afraid of.
And that was
failing.
the YouTube job.
That was the YouTube job, which I did start. A bunch of stuff happened at home, like with my grandparents, and like there was just like health issues and things like that. So it was just a really weighty summer, and I was just like, you know what, like, I'm just gonna have to like swallow my pride and tell this person that I can't do it, you know? And that was like a huge deal for me.
It's a lot of courage.
And it was very sad. But I actually met with that person later on because I had to give back the laptop that I was given to work on the videos and stuff. And I just remember like packing up all of my stuff to bring it to him. We were still on campus. And I just had like the most encouraging conversation and something that I had so much anxiety around, and something that I was just like, you know, oh, this person probably thinks I'm lazy. They probably think that I'm not actually a good, you know, editor, or like I was just saying all of these things to myself that I was just like really worried, because I really do care about like hard work, and I don't ever want to be like viewed as like a lazy person or like I'm trying to get out of something.
Sure.
It's just not something I want to be viewed as. So I was very afraid of that perception. And so I gave him back the laptop, and I was just like, I'm so sorry. Like, I wish I could have been that person. And I was explaining it. And like, he was so encouraging, like truly just a good mentor, honestly. And someone that like has just been an inspiration, because I'm like, you know what? He knew exactly what I was going through. He was my age once. He knew, you know, and just the fact that like, it's really refreshing to meet people that don't forget their past and like where they came from, you know, even when they're successful. And people that are successful, but they're just like, they don't even like realize that they are, because they just, you know, they're like, oh yeah, well, this is just like my job. And like, you know, I'm just a normal, and I love people like that, because it's just inspiring, honestly. So, I had a great conversation with him, and he told me something that like I'll never forget. And that was that like, it is okay to have passions and be passionate. And he was like, but passions don't get you places, you know, because it's great to have ideas. It's fun to have ideas, but if you don't start like acting on it, like you're not going to get anywhere. Because I was sharing all these ideas, you know, and then just coming to the point where I had to be okay with failing, and had to be okay with like, you know, just not being good at everything, and just like kind of breaking myself down to a point where it's like, it's going to be okay. Like either way, you have to fail to succeed. It's not something that you can avoid. And as many times as you hear that, it sounds easy, but then like actually doing it is like really hard. And there's just so many other things that I've learned in life. Like I was such a weird kid. Okay. Like I would read books about like Steve Jobs and stuff like that. And like the whole, like,
well, I don't think that's weird. I mean, hey,
yeah,
maybe I'm weird too. I don't know. But.
Well, I don't know. I just like, I loved success stories.
Yeah.
And like, I always knew that like failure was a part of success, but it was like, almost like I thought I could get around that.
Did you like inspirational sports movies?
I didn't really. I wasn't really super into sports, which is probably why I'm an artist.
That's fair.
Yeah.
My older brother watched those, and like those success stories always like, I've just always had a soft spot for those.
Yeah. But I mean, everybody's a sucker for a good success story, because everybody wants to be that one day. But a lot of people aren't willing to sacrifice their pride for it. And it's just like a whole thing. Everything relates to everything, if that makes sense. Like, that's what I've noticed about life is like, you know, if you're like constantly looking and learning, and you're willing to learn, like you're going to find it. And like, if you ask God, like he's going to lead you to that. So, that was one thing. Like, I was like, well, you know what? You know, this might have been what I thought was like a dream opportunity, but like this might not have been, like, just because it was a good opportunity doesn't mean it was the opportunity for me. Yeah. So, yeah. Everything works out for a reason, and like I don't know where God's gonna take me. I don't know like how he's gonna use me and Jules to like help people, and like I just don't know. Like it could be a success, it could be a failure, but like at least I tried, you know? For sure. So that's kind of the idea. So it all started going back to the whole like how it started, because you know it started with the convention, and I started talking to Juliana about, was like, well, I kind of do really want to make this a real thing. I know so many amazing Christian artists, like, and then like I also didn't know like this podcast existed, and so like as I've been looking at your stuff, I'm like, oh, this is really similar actually to what I'm doing. So I was like, so that's just really cool. So I'm like, I know so many talented people, and like I guess I really wish we had more like, I don't know. I want to be careful about how I say this. Like genuine Christians online. I'm not saying that people that are online are not, obviously.
Sure, yeah.
Like, I can't say that. I don't know these people. I don't know. I'm not, in cahoots with any of
Threads
anyone.
is wild.
Yeah.
It like if you go on Threads and like put feelers out for like all the Christianity type posts, like it's such a jungle, and I never know how to feel about most of what I see, because it's like people will post things to get likes. It's like, oh, I got baptized this week and gave my life to Jesus. It'll get like 1,000 shares.
Yeah.
Wow. And then 2 months later, I'm pretty sure I'll see them post the same thing. Like, I got baptized.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
yeah. And I'm not thinking of any like specific person in mind when I say that. It's just that like, it's just like a general observation.
For sure.
And so, I just think there's so many talented, Christian people that don't speak out about what they believe. And as much as people want to pretend like the online presence doesn't matter and it doesn't mean anything in the real world, like obviously it does, because obviously it's influencing millions and millions of people every single day. And so that is something that like I feel like I just would love to see more of. Like, I want to see more Christians standing up for what they believe. I want to see people actually being vocal and not being afraid. And because the moment that you are is like, that's when everything kind of goes downhill. Like, you have to keep talking, and you have to keep engaging in conversations.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a true Christian and you believe like that, Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. Like, if you are actually believing that, then you will talk about it. And so, like, if you're not afraid to talk about it in the coffee shop with somebody that you randomly meet, then you shouldn't be afraid to talk about that online either. So it's just like, that's the idea.
Yeah.
But like I said, yeah. So it started with that. I keep like going on these rabbit trails.
You're good.
And then, so it started with that, and then I was like, well, if we're going to start like a convention, people should probably know who we are, and we should probably gain some sort of trust in doing something like that. And so I was like, I don't really want to start a YouTube channel. I don't really want to like, these are all like selfish, like fleshly things. I was just like, I don't want to do this, and I don't want to do that, and blah, 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 and all this stuff. And then like, it goes back to my opinion is like, well, why would I be afraid if this is genuinely who I am, and this is genuinely what I believe? And to go through that spiritually is a whole thing too, because then you have to triple check your own self. You really have to examine yourself and be like, am I being a genuine person when I do this? Am I actually pleasing God? Like, are my actions, are my words, like, is everything actually reflecting Christ? And obviously nobody's going to be perfect. We're all sinners. We all do horrible things, and like we're that's why we need Christ, right? But that's just like one thing that really challenged me. Like, before I started this, I was like, I need to actually make sure that I am in complete congruence with like Christ, So I'm just like, yeah, I'm kind of trying to get myself to go back where I was trying to originally say.
Yeah.
So that's why we started the podcast, and that is why. Yeah, that's why. That's absolutely
awesome.
Yeah, sorry. I just like completely went on a whole like tangent, and I'm like, what am I even saying?
That was an awesome tangent.
Oh, yay. Cool. Yay.
No, podcasts I started to fall in love with the concept and just listened like maybe 3 years ago. But it's just like, with today's day and age, it's like, we're in a day and age where if Ben Franklin and George Washington were alive, we could be a fly in the wall and listen to them talk for an hour.
Yeah.
That's wild.
That's
to me.
Crazy.
And it's happening. I mean, even Donald Trump on Joe Rogan.
Oh, yeah.
Like, however many years from now, you can go back and listen to someone just unvetted say their thoughts. And I think it'll really inspire a lot of future generations too. And even I was talking to someone recently about this. What was their thing? It was Josh Grover about why he's getting his doctorate. And his mindset was, I'm doing this research on this very worthwhile topic. Yes, to help people, but also it'll be a legacy for my kids because I'm putting in a ton of work, and my kids will be able to look back on my work and be proud of it and still glean from it. And I really think that as far as podcasts go, like, maybe my kids won't listen to any of my stuff. Yeah. I don't know, but like it will be there. I mean, I don't know if years down the road, my 15-year-old's going to be bored and says, oh, like, maybe I'll scroll through Dad's episodes. Yeah. And like, there will be something in there or someone I talk to that can change my kid's life. It's just, it is crazy time. Because if you think about like the fact, if we could like listen to our parents just talk. I know.
Like, when they were our age.
For sure.
Like, that would be insane. So I don't know. It's kind of an interesting times because like we don't really know what's going to happen in the future, and it's all like untreaded water. So it's like, but it's so, but see, like the thing is, and this has been roaming around in my mind the past year, maybe a bit longer, but like, yes, the uncertainty of all the technological innovation, but whatever God's called you to, you have to press forward as hard as you can, because like, on one hand, we think, oh, wow, we stand on the shoulders of all these great innovations. Okay, but what if you completely flip it and say, no, we are all still just as much pioneers. Like, all the trends out there, all the niches out there, like, there's so many, it kind of feels like it's all been thought of. Yeah, it's all been done But it's not true. No, like, we have to embrace the thought that is not true. Yeah. Like, if whatever happens with the population of the world, like if the world adds 4 more billion people, those 4 billion people, like, the things that are beginnings right now is the future. Like, for all you know, your podcast is going to go for 500 episodes and get a following that's going to really affect lives. But like, it's, you just have to chug forward at the beginning. One of the points you had made as far as like being willing to fail first and succeed, I actually saw an inspirational reel about 2 days ago. Love that illustrated that exact point. It broke down Iron Man 1. Have you seen the movie? I actually haven't.
You actually haven't?
No, I
Okay, well now I get to tell you.
Okay, do tell.
Some of the plot points. Well, anyways, so like Iron Man, when he builds his first suit, it's in a cave with a bunch of scraps. It's a horrible suit. Okay. But it got the job done. Like he escaped a cave. Okay. Just barely with a trash suit. But he escaped alive, and that's what matters. And so like he started out of necessity. It was horrible, but that was Mach 1. Like that was the very first Iron Man suit. Yeah. And then he's going through all these versions of the suit, and there's a line that the reel really focused on, where he said to the AI, okay, we're going to do this. And the AI is like, well, we haven't even done this. And if you do this, well, this could happen. And he said, sometimes you have to run before you can walk. And so he goes blazing ahead. And then not too long after that, he shoots out Iron Man's suit, or he's in the suit, goes like so high in the sky, not taking into consideration that at a certain altitude, the temperature drastically drops. So he gets so high, the suit freezes, and like he almost dies because the suit froze. Yeah. So like he wasn't ready. The suit froze, falls to the he doesn't die, of course. There's a couple more movies after that. There's a lot of movies after that.
That's kind of why I've never, I don't know. It seems like a whole thing to get into. It's like a lot of work.
Oh, for that. And so anyways, you get to the villain at the end of the film, and the villain like has him on the ropes, and the villain is in his own suit. And the villain copied his suit design. Spoilers.
Yeah, it's okay.
But anyways, when Iron Man realizes he's at a loss and he's probably going to lose, what he does is he takes off and goes super high to high altitude. And so just when the bad guy catches him, he looks at the bad guy and says, "Oh, so how did you solve the freezing problem? And the bad guy's like, what freezing problem? And his suit and the bad guy's suit freezes and falls, and so that's how he wins.
Yeah.
But Iron Man, since he already encountered the problem, he thought how to solve it. And that's how he got the upper hand in the end.
Yeah.
And so that was the illustration of you got to start. Like the whole point of succeeding is encountering problems and solving.
Yeah.
And the moral of the video was you have to solve through doing. Like you can only solve on paper so much.
Yeah.
You can only, and even for like stuff on this podcast, I mean, I know for a fact you'll run into your own challenges. Mm-hmm. But like I said, like last year, I ran into burnout, and I explained my editing process to my cousin who's in the film industry. And he was like, "You're doing what?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, you know, I do this and I do this and I do this." And he's like, "You idiot. You idiot. Like you are, I'm surprised you didn't burn out 10 episodes ago. You're killing yourself."
You're just like,
and he's like, "I'm ashamed we have not had this conversation 8 months ago for your sake." And so he was like, "Listen, if you're going to do a podcast, I would do this. And to be honest, most of those things have actually applied. Mm-hmm. It took a little while for me to brace myself. I think because like, I let all the ideas sit for like 4 or 5 months, and then there comes a point you kind of have to, you know, like you said, as far as passion, it's like, oh man, you got to do the thing again. And it's like, you know, okay, and this was the wrong way to do it, but essentially for every episode I did, it was like 6 to 8 hours of editing.
I do remember you telling me that, and I remember thinking, that's crazy, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. Now that was with video. And
I'm not starting with video. I'm just starting purely with audio because I'm just trying to get into the...
If I could do it again, I might... I might start like that. Yeah. But like I started with the webcam, and then I switched to a nicer camera, and like I would do an intro for every video, and I would have to practice it, and I have to write it. I would do the most, and there just came a point where it was like I kept convincing myself, no, I can do this. and by the end, I'm like, I cannot do this.
Yeah, because then you realize that people that have like these full on like podcast productions, like there's literally an entire team of people working on them.
Oh,
so like
it's insane.
It's like
100%.
It's actually crazy. So the fact that you were doing that all by yourself, is crazy.
But there comes a point though where like if God's called you to do something, and you hit that limit, and you hit burnout, that's okay. Like the suit freezes, but when you know God called you to it, you sit back after a little while, and you just, like the phrase that just crosses my mind so much when I don't have answers, and I'm like, there has to be a way.
Yeah. There
has to be a way. There is a way. I haven't found it yet, but it's out there. And I kind of, I mean, we interact with all kinds of people, but the people that I don't want to use the word repulse. Like, it's not that they repulse me, but like when they hit a roadblock or a problem, and they're like, "Well, this is hard. I guess we can't do it." And I just think, what?
Yeah, like don't even try to problem solve.
Well, no, and there also comes to a place of like, well, sure, you can do it, but are you willing to count the cost?
Yeah,
like. Okay, well, maybe it's possible if you hire 4 more people, but is there a way, or even if you accept, you know what, I can't do video, like I can't do the video.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Now, like, what I believe is like video will definitely help promotionally, like promotionally speaking for the long run, like that's how you get engagement.
This is like one of the things that happened that I was like, I knew like God was telling me to do it because like, things just kept happening, but one of the biggest ones is, so I used to work, I used to work in a digital department. I was an animator, and it was very, very cool. Like I was making cartoons, and that's actually where Juliana and I worked together.
Nice.
So just so cool. Which now that I'm thinking about what I'm about to say is I'm like in awe again, because it's just really weird how God does things.
Okay, cool.
So basically, we were both working in digital, and we were, animators, and we were making background illustrators too. So it was like dream job. Loved it so much. I loved the team that I was working with. They were just like so iconic. I got along with everyone so well.
Wow.
Like we just had so much fun, and they made like being productive fun, if that makes sense. And like I love my boss from there too, and like she's just the best. So I had this job for 2 years since I was a junior up to grad school, basically. And I was told when I started the grad program that I was going to be in the same department, and that changed, obviously. And at first, so now I work in the videography department, which is, you know that because I kind of see you in passing. But at first I did not have a good attitude about it. I was like, Lord, I don't understand. Like, I felt like you called me to do grad school, and like, I thought that I was going to be here, and I thought it, and all these things. Like, I was just having like this inward complainative attitude about it. And I was like, I just had a bad attitude about it. And then like the first month I worked in video, I had a really hard time transitioning because, first of all, it's very different, like creative spaces.
Yeah.
Because like whereas I was like brainstorming and storyboarding and making like these fun cartoons and like doing background illustrations and stuff, is like video is just a whole different thing. And
I can imagine.
it just stretches you in a completely different way. And then like learning all the camera equipment, all the audio stuff, like it was just so overwhelming to
like
me.
the codecs and the
the
nitty gritty settings.
And I'm still learning. Like I've worked there for almost a year now. Well, like probably more like 8 months, but like school year wise. And I was just like so overwhelmed, and I was like, there's no way that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like this has nothing to do with what I'm going to be doing. And then Juliana was actually put like in the social media department. And I just think looking back now, because that was before we started the podcast, that was before we knew we were going to do it. I'm just like, that's just too weird. Because now I'm just like, now I know how to do all of that stuff. So when the time is right, and like when I actually have the funds to like buy all of the equipment and stuff, like I know what to get, I know what to do. And I just think that's too much of a coincidence to not be God. So, and just like the fact that, Juliana's in social media too. And like how he's going to be using us to do this podcast is just like, I don't know. It's just too weird. It was just one of those things that so like awesome. In the moment, I just didn't know. I didn't know why I was being put there. And now, so that goes back to like what I was saying earlier about how like everything that has happened and every place that I've been put in my life has been for a reason. And I think this could be it. I mean, things can change too. Like I'm not going to put like God in a box or anything, but like if, I'm pretty, you get the point. It's just so cool. I love it. I love like seeing what God can do and like how he does things, and like it's just so amazing. I can't get over it.
You should talk to Mark Baral. Yeah, did you know that he had a podcast?
I think so. I think he said that his brother did.
Him and his brother had a podcast called the Creative Community Podcast, which is kind of a similar, like creative community.
Yeah.
And it was originally it was called the Destination Arate. Which is, I forget what it means. Yeah. But anyways, no, they made it to like 300 plus episodes.
Oh wow.
It ran for 5 years.
That's wild.
It ran for 5 years.
Is it still up? Like, can you still listen to it?
Some of it is like some of it just got taken down, period, because they had to pay a subscription to keep it up. And so like that's kind of sad. But yeah, so like when I was starting my podcast, I went to Mark or Mr. Baral to some people. I know, okay, I'm older than him.
Yeah.
When I was a senior, he was a junior. I hear other people say Mr. Baral.
Well, it's just a situation.
It's just situation. Yeah. But I went to him about the podcast. I was like, hey, so you had a podcast? He's like, yep, I had a podcast. I'm like, and you finished it, right? He's like, yep, it's gone, or like it's done,
Yeah.
And it wasn't too long before they had finished, and I remember a lot of people felt really sad because like they kind of quit before, like right when it could have taken off a bit more. And from what I'm recalling, I think some of the thoughts, I mean, it was a really good pod. There is stuff up there, and it's definitely worth looking up, right?
I definitely will.
Or I could give you the link.
Yeah.
But yeah, to my remembrance, Mark's brother David did most of the editing and that stuff. And Mark, I think, leaned more into taking the lead on questions and like going into conversation
I had
mode.
no idea that it was both of them because I had talked to him. I had like kind of presented, we were at like one of the art shows and I presented to a bunch of the faculty that I was like, I'm going to do this thing. And because part of me doing something is like gaslighting myself into doing it. I'm like, I was like, I just got to say it and then I have to do it. You know what I mean? Like if you say you got to do it, you can't like back out and you know,
for sure.
So that's not necessarily gaslighting, but like that's kind of like my thing. I just like,
gaslighting myself.
Yeah. So I mentioned it and then he mentioned to me that his brother, and he was like, you should definitely, so he gave me his Instagram and stuff. I never did anything with that. I kind of just remembered right when you brought it up, but I should definitely check it out.
Yeah, no. And it was a really good podcast. It's kind of put me deep in, whenever I think about it, I feel like I go deep in thought just because, I know they ended it. It was very long running and Mark, he, like, I said, oh, you had a podcast for so long. I want to get some tips from you. His response was like, well, I mean, in jest, tongue in cheek, like, oh, I don't know if I'm the one, you know, to ask, because like, you know, there's probably a lot we could do better. And there was something like not pertaining to him per se, but like internally, there was something, I don't know if offensive is the word, but like 5 years and you walk away with one of the main thoughts being, oh yeah, you know, I probably could have done a lot of things better. And for me, like, I kind of to you, what you said about being passionate, I'm like, I can't walk away from something like that. Like I'll put in the 6 to 8 hours of editing because like I'm not going to walk away and think, oh yeah, it could have been a lot better. I'm like, no, this is what I'm capable of. And I feel like there's just always been this deep-seated rock inside of me that's like, I just intuitively know I'm capable of so much.
Yeah,
you know, like,
I definitely know what you're talking about. Yeah. It's very weird because I've noticed that a lot of people don't have that sometimes. Like, I don't know. I'm just like, what is it about my personality, like what God put in my heart? Because like every person is meant for something different, and like that's just facts. Like
even if they're a layman that does a 9 to 5 and has a good family, you know?
Yeah, like everybody is meant for their thing, and like I don't know, it's just so interesting.
Yeah,
we won't know. Like God has a plan for everyone, and like it also is very dependent on you and like what you decide to do with surrendering to him. And I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay, so because I really wanted to come to this point just from everything that you said. Okay, like I really want you to run with this because this is how I felt. Okay, like have you ever felt, this is for lack of a better word, it's not the right word, but felt like there's a certain curse in God, man, like Lord, you know, like, you know what I mean? But I've looked at God and said, I feel like I'm cursed with this drive in my chest without the tools to get there.
I've never thought of it that way before, in that specific way. I've thought of like kind of going back earlier to what we were saying about like, I've never understood why I never had like my thing, or like why I could pick only one thing. I'm like jealous of people who have like a niche that they're good at, and not necessarily like jealous. I actually like more admire them, and but I also just feel like it's very frustrating not being able to know what your one thing is, if that makes sense, and like the passion that comes behind like, I don't know, just feeling passionate about everything can be really exhausting sometimes, and like knowing that you're capable of things, but yeah, like not knowing how to get there. Like, yeah, I definitely could relate to that.
Yeah. And even to the effect of like let's say that you're pretty sure, like let's take the podcast for instance. I'm not sure if that'll be the best item to focus on for this illustration, but like let's say you do find the one thing and you get this vision of like, man, it could be this, and you're thinking like a decade down the road.
Oh yeah.
But like over the next 3 years you're growing at a certain rate, and or even 5 years, and you look at the trajectory and you think, yeah, there's no way, like I'm not cut out. Like how is this what's in my chest, but like I'm not, like I don't have the talent or the quite this like the skill set come nearly as easily. And
Yeah.
I don't know, I just feel like when I was a kid I just had like that drive, and I would look at other people that were so much more honed in and just did it. Like, I mean, take like if I go back to middle school, okay, so like I was starting to get a little more serious about piano, but just because of the nature of like some other stuff going on in life, video games were my escape, you know. And like I loved the video games, and to some degree I don't regret it to some degree. But like music just wasn't my escape. And so I kind of was so jealous of the people whose escape was music because they got so good at it through that means. And so like I was trying so hard at music, but because it just wasn't my natural escape, my escape dragged me away from the thing I felt, no, like this is my thing, but like it's not. And then like, oh, and then sports, like I want to get so good at sports, and oh man, soccer, like I get, and like that was an outlet for a different part. And like for other people, like no, music was their outlet for that. They didn't do sports or they didn't do video games, and like, or maybe they did, but they did it with just enough moderation that they could go all in on music. And that's why I didn't go to college for music, is because my piano teacher looked at me and said, listen, I think you could do it. Like, I really think you can make a killing in whatever industries, but I will tell you that you got to be 100% all in.
Yeah.
Like that, you got to commit to that being your thing. And I said, I'm not there, you know?
Yeah. For me, music like was my escape, and art was not the thing that I was like very naturally like good at. So the fact that like I chose it as a career path is very interesting, because I don't know, in some ways I feel like music would have been easier for me to do. I don't really know why I didn't choose it. I just didn't like, I don't know. For me at the time, and things can change, you know, your feelings for things. So for me at the time, I didn't want music to become about me, because that was like my like songwriting period where I was like, and I was just like really afraid about making it about me, because I wasn't spiritually mature enough. So I chose art because I was like, you know, I've been told that, you know, I'm kind of gifted, like I could see myself, but like for me, art was not like a natural like talent. Like, whereas like there's so many of my friends, like they're just very naturally inclined toward art, or in tune with art, and like how things are done and stuff. Like for me, it was very much you have to work really, really hard in order to be good. And like that's always been my experience with graphic design.
It's pretty intimidating.
Yeah, it's always been my experience. So like I've always struggled with the idea of like when people say like, oh, you're so talented. I'm like, dude, I worked hard to get here. Like, I don't feel talented. Like, so that's how I feel about art. Whereas like music is like something that I'm like, okay, like this is how like I relax. This is how I cope. This is how, So I don't know if I kind of went off of like what you were saying. I feel like I redirected the conversation, but
there was one point where I think I had been working on a song for months, like so many hours, and I was just banging my head against a wall because I was like, I need to finish it. I just working so hard on the song, and Megan looked at me and was like, "Do you even enjoy this? Like,
like do you actually like doing
like
this?
why are you doing this?
Yeah.
And I mean, and of course from a spouse that loves you, it's a very valid question.
Yeah.
Very, very valid.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's just, but like for me, it was just like a weight on my chest. And that's like, I mean, going back to the word that's not quite the word, but like the curse of there's a burden and there's only one way to get it off my chest. And regardless of how I feel about the methodology or, it just like, it needs to happen. And, of course there's a sense of like accomplishment and like, there are days where you get in the flow and you're having a good time. But, yeah, it's.
Yeah, I relate to that, but like from more of like what I actually do right now. Like, I don't think I look at my friends, my talented friends, and they're like so excited to work on like their design projects. And like I'm in grad school for graphic design, and I'm like, I don't want to work on any of this. Like I'm like I enjoy it to an extent, but I don't know, especially because right now we're in the current issues in art class,
Sure, yeah.
which has been like the topic of the semester, and because your wife is in that too, so we've all been like super
Awesome
into
discussions.
Yeah,
I get all
good.
the tea.
Yes, it's
and the
so good.
tea tastes so good.
Yeah, it's so fun. That is like my favorite class, and
Oh yeah,
I'm like, oh my goodness, if I could just like talk about that all day, every day. I think that it's weird. I think I am just like a really deep thinker, and like I really enjoy doing stuff like that, or talking about things like that. But anyway, so now like with my other classes, I'm like, I don't know. I think that I'm the type of person that's like, no matter what I'm doing, I'm gonna find like the good in it. Yes and no, kind of. I don't know. So yeah, I don't know. I just sometimes I'm like, I feel like there's definitely points where I enjoy the creative process, and when I do something, I'm like proud of it and I love that I do it. But then sometimes I'm like, I feel like after grad school, I'm just gonna become a barista and like, and like, who cares about grad? Like, oh, I traveled this road next. I don't know, but like, not completely. I'm not gonna do that. Like, I'm definitely not gonna do that.
There are some people that have.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm not gonna do that, but I think that way sometimes. Where I'm like, you know what? Sure. It wouldn't be a forever thing. Like, I didn't absolutely just put all this work in for absolutely no reason, because I think it's kind of insane when people do that.
It is crazy.
Because it's like, how have you been committed to something for so long, and then you're just gonna act, like
and I will say, graphic design is much more marketable than music.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Now, I will say, like,
probably the reason I chose.
Well, yeah, 100%. Now, what I will say though is like the music education around the circles, that we're in, that get that type of education, like it's really for honing in the craft for like church services.
Oh, for sure.
And specials, and like that's kind of what they lean into. And so for like our philosophy, about God and worship, it's 6 years of your life where even if you go to work at a Domino's or what have you, your purpose was that on Sundays you're like a regular investor in the church, and I think that that's also viable. It's not 6 years to get a bigger paycheck, but like,
I think there's a place for that too. I'm not discrediting that.
I think it's important for young, like, again, like the college that we're familiar with, it's important for music majors to understand that unless you want to teach at a Christian school, that's, you're looking at specials. Now, like I could have a guest on this podcast and they can tell me otherwise, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
Like I'm all here for it. But my parents did give me they said, okay, if you want to go the music route, that's fine, but you have to be willing to teach.
Oh yeah.
Like, yeah. And I said, I can't do it. Like,
my sister is a music education teacher. So yeah, that's what she went to college for, and she loves it, and she teaches in a Christian school, and that's her thing. And I couldn't be happier for her, because like she's actually doing what she went to school for.
Yeah.
But I do find that a lot of people that get that don't end up doing what they,
I can't look a 10-year-old in the eyes that didn't practice.
Yeah.
I like, and I've been that 10-year-old. I say that because I know what I put my teachers through.
Yeah.
And I like, if I was the greatest at practicing and I never really put my teachers to that. I think I could maybe be a teacher with a better conscience because I'm not a hypocrite, but
Right.
like I would totally be a hypocrite.
Yeah.
What is nice though is like my what is nice. I mean, there's a sound and I lost my train of thought. That was so, oh, I think it's your I can't English. Yard work tools.
Oh, okay. I see.
What was I saying?
Teacher,
music. Oh, right. If I was great at practicing through all my music education,
Yeah.
I think I could have a student and look them in the eyes and say, practice.
Yeah.
You know, but I think that was part of it too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah.
I don't know. It's just like people make decisions. Like you really, some people I've noticed aren't super capable of like thinking 10 years down the road, where I've like already thought about my entire life. This is what I'm going to do here, and this is what I'm going to do here. And maybe that's just because that's just like a part of my personality and can be a con, obviously.
Sure.
But like, there's pros and cons to everything. Like nobody knows the answers to everything. And like, I feel like as long as you're doing something that like you're content with God in, then like that's the best that you can do. And like, that's what you should do.
Absolutely.
Cause like for me, I've had like an idea of like a career and stuff, like, but like at the end of the day, I also want to be like a mom, and I also just want to be like, I just want to be chill at the same time. Like my end goal isn't to like be this like boss babe career woman, you know, like just because I don't feel like that's what God called me to do, but like maybe for a season, you know. So well, not necessarily career boss babe, but you know,
Sure.
you know what I mean. Like there's just like there are certain priorities that like the Bible just talks about, like, you know, obviously your family's a priority. Like obviously I want to get married one day, and like, you know, when you get married and you have a family, it changes your entire perspective on life. So for now, this is what I'm doing, and you know, we'll see what God does. I've just come to the conclusion like that I'm never gonna know, and I'm gonna stop trying to figure out what I'm trying to do, because I don't.
Yeah, you just got to keep trying. I'd like to think that it's really good to leave a trail that marks where all your passions were.
Mm-hmm.
So like, you know, as I would think for myself, is like I want my kids in the future to know that their dad didn't give up on chasing something.
Mm-hmm.
That like, you know, even if you have a passion that might not turn into a career,
mm-hmm.
there is a way to hone it. There's a way to, and like I want my kids to see their dad with his nose to the grindstone. Like I want my kids to be involved, you know, like I want, you know, like it, like if music were to turn into just my relaxer, you know, like my kids should be able to see that, you know. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's interesting because like I have memories. My dad's actually pretty good at piano, and he wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
But at least I don't think he would. But like he really never played a lot at all. But he was good at playing by ear, and like it's weird. It felt like once every 3 to 5 years, I would be downstairs, and my dad would just sit up at the piano upstairs and just start playing something by ear, and it was like really good.
You're like, what
and
in the world?
Yeah, like it was really good, and like there was something, you know, if my dad's watching this episode, but like there really was something, I don't know the word, like cathartic or influential, but just like it was my dad's breather, just like, oh, I'm just gonna play for fun, and like there was something that was so inspirational just as a kid watching, and then like, whoa, my dad's really good at that, you know. And like I want my kids to be able to say the same thing, you know, but like take what my dad gave to me and just take it much further,
like to a whole nother level.
Yeah, because and like, you know, of course I don't have kids, you know, and you're not married yet, but like I've always been fascinated by the idea that like for all the what ifs and all the like drawbacks of our own life and experiences, and like I should have done this, or I should have considered this, and what was I thinking, and like you have a kid and you have a completely blank slate.
Yeah.
And I also look back so much differently on the way that I was raised and the way, again, going back to my dad, the way he tried to communicate things on like me going to college for accounting, you know. I said, I want to go to college for music. He said, really?
Yeah.
You know, like get a skill, you know. And as a kid, I didn't really quite understand where my dad was coming from, but looking back and looking at my dad's life experiences, I now understand
like why.
Whoa, yeah, like my dad had 40, 50 years of just history and baggage and like what ifs and I should have's, and here I am, the blank slate, and my dad's saying, I'm trying to give you the best life I possibly can. And like all those what ifs I wish I did, please. And like I'm doing, like, that's just a parallel, you know, like I can't teach piano because I'd be a hypocrite, you know. And what I'm really proud to say though is like I did listen to my dad, and I prayed really hard about it, and I let go of a lot of things, and like I know that when I look at my kid and be like, hey, like just listen to me, I'm telling you from experience. Yeah. You want to do this. And if my kid's like, yeah, well, you know, I'll come back and be like, hey, I understand, but like, you know, this is how I handled when my dad gave me wisdom, and I felt not the exact same way, but like I felt that way. I prayed about it, and I still listen to my dad, and like the blessings from God that came out of that were huge. We're huge, and I'm so grateful. And you know, like parents are just trying to do the very best with the cards that they're given. They're given. Like oh man, one of my favorite encouragements from people, like almost of all time, is my younger brother, who's also not married. Well, we're married, Megan and I, but like we were at the dinner table. He was over. I forget the conversation, but David just looked at us and said, you guys are going to be great parents. I'm like, oh, like, thanks, man. He's like, no, I'm serious. Aww. Do you know how many sociopaths there are out there that created these, really that created these psychopathic human beings, and society has yet to collapse? Like, getting pretty close. Sure. You know, but like he said, do you know how many horrible parents are out there and their kids survived to become adults, and some of them become some of the most productive people in society. Like, who knew? Like who God knew that some of the use anything? Like who knew that some of the most scarred, like horrified kids can end up some of the most A-type personalities. Now, probably not healthy, because you know, you probably should see therapy. But you know, it's like that will just always resonate with me. Like, I'm not a psychopath, you know. Like, I'm not, you know. Yeah, like, oh yeah. So I don't know how he got there. I don't know. I don't know. Education, music. I could talk about the fact that, like, when I did choose graphic design as my major, like, nobody understood. And I don't even think that, like, I understood what I was doing. Like, I was, like, telling everybody, like, I'm going to be a nurse. I'm going to do a nursing school. I had, like, this little binder of, like, the different schools I was going to go to. And, like, I had, like, everything, like, planned out. And then I volunteered at the hospital for 2 years. And then I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And then, like, I saw it when I volunteered at the hospital, how poorly nurses were treated. And I was like, I think, like, it took, like, an emotional, like, toll on me. I think I'm too almost, like, empathetic toward people. I don't know if that makes sense. But, like, I literally would get, like, I get emotional when it came to, like, seeing people in pain. And I was like, I think that, like, I don't think I could do that. Like, I just don't think I'm, like, emotionally, like, strong enough for that. And also just the way, like, props to nurses, the way that they're treated sometimes is just, like, and the 12-hour work shifts. It's because a lot of nurses work 12-hour shifts, not 8. Yeah. So like, there was that, and then I was like, well, I think I could go for music, but I actually, like, play most of the instruments by ear, and I am more of the by ear type of person, and like, I just, like, I was like, I couldn't see myself trying to relearn everything I've taught myself, like, the right way, if that makes sense. Like, sounds really miserable to me, and this might not be the perspective that I should have had on it, but I had a lot of people telling me that, like, if I went to the college that I went to, if I did what I was gonna do, that or that what I'm doing now, I was very much told that, like, I was wasting my talent that God gave me. And
people that had really good intentions, like really good intentions, and they really wanted the best for me, like people that I love and I still talk to, and like, you know, but when you're younger, it really does like kind of like put you in like a bad headspace, because you're just like, you're like, man, I've prayed about this, and like I think this is what God wants me to do, but then other people are telling you that they don't think this is what God wants you to do. And just like the spiritual challenge that can create for you, and just really, it actually helped me grow a lot, honestly, in my own personal relationship with God, because it challenged me to be less reliant on like spiritual leaders in my life, and like way more reliant on God, which I didn't even know was a problem when I was younger. But I think I definitely took people's opinions instead of like way more seriously than I should have.
Sure.
Obviously take into consideration all the advice that you're given, but like if you've prayed about it, you're honoring your parents, you've sought counsel, and like it's all good, like then I'm so grateful that like I got past that, because I don't regret anything. I don't regret where I am right now. I don't regret how God has used certain things to get me places. And I think that even though in the moment I probably wouldn't have considered myself having a good relationship with God, I know that he saw me, because he saw the desires of my heart, and he saw like I would constantly pray about it. But like I really did struggle with like what people thought about me, which is just like a whole nother thing. And something that I've like really struggled with is just, and why it was kind of hard for me to start the podcast and like all this stuff. Like it's kind of all full circle, because, I really, really struggled with like the fear of man, and I did not realize how big of a challenge that is spiritually, like to get away from. Which is interesting, because like I was never ashamed of Christ. I would talk about him like all the time and things like that, but I still cared what people thought of me from like a spiritual perspective. If I wasn't doing things this exact way or this specific way, or I wasn't, I had certain people tell me that, I'm not in the will of God because I'm not doing this, or things like that. Just like really interesting ways of approaching people.
I find that people, whether unconsciously or willfully, they'll put God in a box as a means of better understanding him. And I think that there are plenty of boxes in the Bible that God does put himself in. Yeah. Like there, in terms of his character, in terms of how he works in people's lives. But I think that there's so many more open-ended things in the Bible than people really consider. And I would agree with you just on the fear of man, people giving opinions and, well, this is the will of God. I'm like, well, I should do this. Oh, and this is the will of God. Oh, and if the Bible says it, then sure, that's will of God. But in terms of the specifics, it's like, oh, well, it's the will of God that you do this on the weekend, and I'm thinking, wow, that's a lot of time, I
had an amazing childhood, and I would not change it for the world. Like I was so blessed with the amount of people that cared for me and cared about the direction that I was going in, and just like really, really blessed in that area. But it got to a point where I was like, at some point I'm going to have to make this decision on my own. Yeah. And for now, like, I think that God has blessed it, because I feel like God has used that situation to really help me grow closer to him. And just, if there's anything that I could say to anybody about that, is like, only you really know what God wants you to do. And like, if you are actually being genuine, you actually are praying about it, you're actually reading scripture, and you're honoring your parents, and you're doing everything that you can, like, there has to be a point where you have faith that God's gonna get you there. And like that is like something I didn't realize. Like, how can I have such a desire to serve God, but I still lacked faith in a way, if that makes sense, because I was so heavily reliant on what people with good intentions wanted me to do, and things like that. So I don't know, I kind of just want to talk about that, because like it's kind of a big part of like how I got here, and is something that I'm like pretty burdened about, because I think that a lot of people struggle with what people think about them more than they would like to admit, even Christians.
Yeah.
Even though, like, honestly, just having like actual faith, like actually stepping out, being blind and doing something. And it's scary, but like, isn't it scarier not to, like, when you really think about it?
Yeah. There's been moments where I really feel like I've related to Abraham, you know, where like, I know I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I just don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You know, and,
yeah.
and yeah, like Abraham didn't like left the house not knowing where he was going to land. And like, that's wild to think about that journey. And not only that, but like his wife followed him, and I believe Lot went with him too. And that's a whole another thing. 'Cause like Lot went with him, you know, Lot had faith too.
Yeah.
Lot had faith in what God had called Abram to. And yeah, like there is a certain beauty of like, you know, I don't know what I'm doing, but I know I'm on the path, and I don't know where it's going to land, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I think it's easier for adults to make those types of decisions. I think as a high schooler going into college, like I remember calling my mom right before I went to college, and I said, "Mom, like, I know I'm signed up for college and all, but I really think God wants me to not go to college and try my hand really hard at music." And I scared my parents. my parents were like, "Not go to college, you know, like,"
what are you doing,
and
man?
yeah, and they said, "Well, for our sake, do at least one semester or do 2 semesters. Like, if you want to leave after that, sure, you know, but at least do that, you know." And for me, what happened was I went and I made friends that sucked me into their group, and I didn't have the heart to leave them.
Yeah.
and like, that's kind of why I kept going through, cause you know, I made some good friends who I still keep in touch with.
Yeah.
But yeah, Abram, you know, it's a great example of just start. If God's told you to make a step, just make the step. Yeah.
I feel like, because I grew up in a really like conservative Christian home, like I always was told, this is what you do, and this is what you do, and then this is what you'll get, and things like that. And like, there's a lot of value to teachings like that. Like, there is a ton of value.
Sure. Yeah.
But at the same time, I think that it made me feel like if I didn't do something exactly that way, or if I messed up, or if I made a mistake, like that, like everything was going to be ruined, and like my whole life was going to like be done for. And I just made, and I'm not going to be in the will of God. So I like viewed the will of God as like more of a point of arrival instead of like an everyday being in the presence of God. And like, that was just like life changing to like realize that, and not even it was taught to me that way. It was just like, I guess when you're a kid, anybody who grows up in any type of environment is going to have to figure out what they believe about something at the end of the day. And nothing's going to be like taught to you perfectly. And, but at the end of the day, like, you are still accountable for like your relationship with God and the way that you react to things. Because I think that, I've seen a lot of Christians grow up in like these in really conservative Christian homes, and they're like, they kind of use it as a reason why they did something else, and like why, and then they leave the faith or something like that. And to me, to me, it's just like, you still have to understand, like, you're accountable for the way you react to those situations. And
100%.
What I notice with our generation is a lack of responsibility. And I find myself doing it sometimes too, where I'm like, you know, everybody kind of likes to play victim in a sense. And that's something that it's just like, it's such a trap. It's such a trap. It's such a lie. And getting in God's word every single day is the most important thing that you could do for yourself, because feeding yourself truth in a world full of lies and of deceit is just like, it is the most important thing that you could do.
100%.
And I feel like recently, more than ever, even though I've been taught that my entire life, I've been told to read my Bible every single day. And like, it wasn't till like a couple years ago where I was like, no, I need the Bible. Like it is still a process to like get your own convictions about that. It is still a process to like follow every single step. Like you have to think for yourself.
The Bible quite literally is life or death.
Yeah.
And I think kids, especially when your parents are telling you like read your Bible, like kids don't really understand the gravity.
And like, they won't, like for kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even like into the teenage years, I think that teenagers are really where there begins to form this divide where like I felt like in my youth group that there was the group that cared and the group that didn't. And like I don't want to say there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, like we're teenagers, you know, but like really that's when you're really capable of feeling the weight of like this world's gonna eat you up and spit you out, and this world, like there's even a good chunk of the world that can look appealing or safe or whatever, but like it's still the world. And I was talking with someone, I forget who it was, but like everything in life, you constantly have a filter. Like our conversation right now, I'm filtering the words that you're saying through my experience, and I'm thinking, oh, like, you know, pros, cons, good, bad, ooh, right. Comment, not comment. Or like I pull scrolling through Instagram, there's a filter. Oh, don't look at that. Oh, don't click this. Don't whatever. But like the Bible is the only thing that we are granted in this world where you can have no filter and just suck it all up.
Yeah.
It's the one thing where you can just absorb and absorb and absorb and not have to think twice. You know, like the words are tried 7 times like gold and fire.
And every time you read the same scripture, you could get something different every single time. It's
like wild, yeah.
It's so deep. Like it's so deep. And yeah, I think that one thing, especially when it comes to my personal relationship with God, is I started realizing when I was in college that I was like, how did I like grow up in a Christian home and like I went to church every Sunday and I was involved in all these ministries, and then like I read the Bible and I'm like, I didn't even know the depth. Like I've gone my whole life learning about things and I didn't even understand.
There's so many verses that still, and to be honest, like there's some verses that I didn't really understand until I compared it to other Bible versions. Like like for example, there's a verse in Ecclesiastes that talks about having a diversified investment portfolio. No, I'm dead serious. I'm dead serious because it's in Ecclesiastes. It took me and you all know how I found that out is because I was researching cryptocurrency, and I said and like I went to ChatGPT and I said ChatGPT, what in the Bible might have something to say about cryptocurrency? and crazy. And I know, right? And the Bible verse, it gave me a couple, but one of them was in Ecclesiastes, not chapter 6, maybe 12, I don't know. But essentially it was, cast your bread out on 6 waters, yea, 7, because you don't know what bread will come back to you in a few days. And you don't know what evil lies ahead. Yeah. And so the point is
different biblical principles.
And so the point is invest in multiple things because you don't know what's going to tank.
Yeah.
You don't know
and that goes
what's going to come back to you.
Lots of stuff. Like,
100%.
Even in your life, like your time.
It's wild, yeah.
Like, and so that's the part where it's like, as much as I sometimes would think that it's a curse to have a little bit of talent in a lot of places, is like it actually
you don't know.
You actually just don't know, and like it can be very helpful too because you never know what's gonna stick, and also if something doesn't work out, you have like other things that you can do, and so it's a blessing and it's a curse just depending on the way that you look at it. But
yeah, and to something we were talking about earlier, just in terms of like knowing God's will. When it comes to God's will, and you've prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed, and you've consulted and been in the Word, and I'm reiterating some of what you said.
Yeah.
But when it comes to those things, God, there comes faith, like you said, faith that you will not make the wrong decision. You just won't. Like, and I know that there's theologians that have said something to that effect as well. But like when the time comes to make the call, just make your gut call.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, because there's such like, there's just so many horrible things that can happen when you just live afraid. Like, first of all, it causes crippling anxiety. Not trusting in God. Like, there was a period in my life where I feel like I questioned a lot of things about faith because of the way people treated me, which is and isn't valid depending on the way that you look at it.
Like, wrangle with it.
Yeah, it's just like, because there is a sense of like accountability and responsibility for examining yourself and things like that. But man, people can have really good intentions and be really awful sometimes, and they really think they're helping because, but it is more harming. But it's also like, I wouldn't change that because it taught me so much. So, just God uses certain things to help you, and even if it's not what you would expect. I'm trying to think of like where I was trying to go with that. What were we talking about? We were talking about
it's taking God won't let you make the wrong decision.
Yeah. So I very much held myself responsible for making the right decision, and then like when God pulled me away from that, was just like the most life-changing thing ever. Like it came to the point where I was afraid that if I made the wrong decision, that like that like everything would fail, or like that God wouldn't like love me. No, I know he loves me. I don't know how to like, I don't know how to explain the feeling of like fearing that if I didn't make the right decision, then like God would view me a certain way or something like that. Okay. So like, do you know what I'm trying to say?
I think so. Yeah.
I became afraid of God, if that makes sense. Which is like pretty dark. Like, it sounds pretty dark because I was like, well, what if I make the wrong decision and then God thinks this of me? It's just like interesting. I don't even know how you get to a point like that, but it was because of how certain people explained things to me, like, well, if you do this or if you do this, then it's gonna turn out this way, or something along the lines of that. But it put me in a bad space, headspace, where I was like afraid to make the wrong decision, so I just didn't move. I was like afraid to read my Bible. I was afraid to pray. I was afraid to like, I don't know. It was a really bad place. And it was like the most anxiety inducing. It's like I wanted the relationship, but I was afraid God wasn't going to accept me, which is just wild because it's like completely the opposite of like what Christianity really is. But like the way that you can like lie to yourself, the way that your heart deceives itself, and the Bible talks about that, it's just so, it's so alarming to how much the devil is working on you, as much, like the devil can work on you too. And so I questioned a lot of things for a while, and I really had to get help with like, anxiety and just putting way too much pressure on myself, and understanding, coming to the point where I understand, wow, I lacked so much faith. I completely perceived God in the opposite way. Like, I let that into my life because it became about me, like, and instead of like, how can I serve? I don't know. It's just, it's an interesting point in my life a couple of years ago that, because I let people get into my head about how to view God and how they viewed God. And it's just like, it really is like your personal walk. Like it is personal for a reason. Like it is, I don't know. I don't even know what I'm saying.
God knows how to speak your language, and God knows, or as someone put it once, when God, I remember. So someone asked the question about hearing the voice of God in your head, about like, that whisper, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And the answer was, okay, number one, we have God's word, period. Okay. So let's just start with that premise. But also, when God wants to speak to you, he will speak CJ. When God wants to speak to you, he's going to speak Christina, and he's going to have a different vocabulary for everyone. And I think a lot of people,
because he knows how we think, he knows our how we react to things, our emotions, what our intentions are. It's just like, when you think of it that deeply, as to how well 100%. God knows you, like God knows you better than you know yourself. Because he made you. Oh, it's so like, I know. It's so mind blowing.
I was on an airplane once. venting to a friend next to me. I was heartbroken over my life decisions, and I was in a pity party, and I was like, "Oh, I regret this, and I've done this," and it was just a very sad conversation. And my friend looked at me and said, "Did you really?" Oh no. The phrase that I said was, "I feel like God gave me an amazing hand of cards, and I have played all the wrong cards at the wrong time." And my friend looked at me and said, "Did you really think that when God gave you your hand of cards, he thought you would play the right cards at the right time?" like I know. And it's just like, it was this huge light bulb moment of God's grace on how we wrangle with the decisions of life. And I feel like the past day or two, the illustration that's come to my mind, I forget what sparked the illustration, but it's kind of like when it comes to us and God's will, it's kind of like we are basketball players on a basketball team, on a basketball court in a game. And, you know, in life, we're making decisions and what's God's will, and we're receiving the ball and we're tossing the ball. And number one, no game's perfect. No team plays perfect.
Yeah.
No player is going to play perfect. Okay, Michael Jordan missed shots. Kobe Bryant.
Yeah.
Well, rest in peace, Kobe.
Anyways,
sorry,
shots.
I meant to say LeBron James,
Yeah.
but respect to Kobe. And I believe he was a Christian.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think that's what
so,
I heard.
So we'll...
Anyway, LeBron James.
Hey,
he missed shots.
If people in heaven have any window into what still goes on in this world... Shout out to Kobe. I hope you're listening. Because I still respect you and we think of you.
Yes.
Because wouldn't that be wild if
that would be.
God's like, hey, Kobe, check out this podcast conversation happening right now.
Look what I've got going on down here. Yeah.
Who knows? But I meant to say LeBron James. Like LeBron James still misses shots, and my brain was like, you know, when it comes to life, God basically is the court. He basically is the hoop. He's control over all of that. He has control on when you get tossed the ball. He has control over how mistakefully, if that's a word, how mistakefully you're tossed the ball and you don't catch it because it wasn't a good toss to begin with. Like, he has control over how many people are in there and are distractingly shouting. He has control over so many elements. And I feel like when we're taking in everything, it's so easy that we're so focused on the ball and the hoop, and we're so focused on all this that we completely miss the fact of just how involved God is in every single detail, even all the imperfect details.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it just goes back to, like, understanding that, like, humans are prideful. Like, we, even though we are saved Christians, like, we still have pride, and it still becomes an issue, and it's still something you have to, you know, like, die to yourself every single day. Like, and it's something that's not going to leave, because there's a part where it's like, we're still human, you know? But it completely just draws us back to God and the fact that we need him. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so as much as I hate to say it, I think we need to land the plane.
Yeah. It's been a good conversation.
We've covered a lot of ground. Are you ready for your own podcast now? Do you feel more like,
I feel
wow,
more
I've
relaxed.
talked. Yeah. I've talked. Yeah.
I think it's okay. I recorded the first episode, and it was pretty rocky. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah. I was like, pause. No. But
how long is the first episode?
It's only 30 minutes.
Okay.
I wanted to just do like a little intro, you know?
Yeah.
And because, as you could tell, I can talk for a long time.
Sure.
So we'll hopefully get into the deeper side of things in further episodes. So.
Sure. What and like, is it on Instagram? Is it on YouTube?
Yeah. So for now, it's just gonna be on Instagram, and then I kind of haven't decided how it's going to be uploaded yet, because I'm still researching. I think I have an idea, but we'll see. So if you look at the Instagram, even if this is in November, it should be in the link of the Instagram, and that's just created.
Is it being posted in November?
No, it should be up before then. So
Okay, cool.
Yeah. But if you go to created.creators on Instagram, then the link will be in the bio. So
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep. Pretty exciting.
Do you have any final? Ooh. Okay, so here's a question. Here's the land the plane. Here's the land the plane question.
No pressure.
Yeah. No pressure. With how with as excited as you are right now over the podcast and what you're doing, what encouragement would you give to you 5 years ago on the unknowing of what's going to happen? Like, just
that's a big question.
With what you know now. Now let me add this. Like,
Okay.
You can also view it as, there's someone 5 years younger that is in the state that you were in. And just like, just give like a 5-minute encouragement, just to that person who really, like, if they related to us in any way on, wow, I have all these like passions or talents, or I want to do this, I want to do that. Like, I know we've already given so much encouragement from our conversation, but like, how it, like, to you, what's the kingpin point?
Okay.
To summarize that.
I think I know what to say. If I'm talking to I'm going to talk as if it was like my younger self.
Absolutely.
I would probably say that you have no idea how much you are capable of, and just to keep working hard, because sometimes you work so hard. Like for me anyway, I feel like I work so hard I don't even realize how much I'm doing. And so I'm so busy that like I'm in grad school right now. I'm looking back and I'm like, oh yeah, I have a bachelor's degree like in graphic design. Like, that's pretty cool. Like,
that is pretty cool.
And then I'm like, oh, I'm literally pursuing my master's. Like, that's pretty cool too. And just like giving God every single step, staying faithful, consistently seeking God every single day. 'Cause it's not about like I kept talking about in the podcast, like, it's not about this point of arrival. It's about every small choice you make now. And so just to stay faithful, stay consistent, and to give yourself a little bit of credit. And it's okay to take a break sometimes. It's okay to have burnout sometimes, and to just tell yourself to relax. God understands, and you should be understanding to yourself, and give yourself some grace too sometimes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Sorry.
That was a great, no,
Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that's what I would tell my younger self, because I can be pretty self-critical, and I think a lot of people in the creative industry are like that because they're trying to do their best. So that's what I would say. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Right. Well, thank you so much for being on this podcast.
Thank you for inviting me. It's so fun. Yeah.
Yeah. To be, and this was very fun. I'm going to land the plane. Okay. No, I really appreciate you coming on this podcast. Yeah. And if you guys made it this far, this was a longer episode, but if you made it this far, thanks so much for listening, and I will catch you in the next episode. Bye.